Welcome to Rome, more specifically the port town of Civitavecchia to the north of the city, where you'll find the primary cruise terminal for the region. I'm about to board a 10-night celebrity cruise to the Adriatic Sea, which begins and ends in Rome. Along the way, we'll have stops throughout Italy, as well as in Greece, Croatia, and Montenegro. Some of the docking points in the port itself are not accessible by taxi, and that's where this bus shuttle transit point comes into play. There's a bay for each of the ships in the port, and while the tuk-tuks would probably be a little bit more fun, I think Celebrity prefers that we stick to their provided buses. As we pull up to the terminal itself, let me welcome you to the channel if you're new here. My name is Kevin, and I am the Flip Flop Traveler. I think that the internet is in need of a whole lot more honesty when it comes to trip report and travel review content. I just want to be real with you. I make trip reports, high-end hotel reviews, and occasionally some cruise videos as well. And I always self-fund my trips. In fact, you'll always be able to find the exact price that I paid in the description below. I didn't alert Celebrity Cruises that I'd be filming because I want as normal of an experience as possible. So in this video today, I'm going to give you nothing more than my own personal, honest, and unbiased opinion based on my own experience. Once you arrive at the terminal building, you'll go through a fairly painless process of filling out baggage tags, checking in, and then being released to board the ship. Let me give you a better look at the Reflection herself. You'll notice that she's all white. But currently, she's in Celebrity's newest livery, which is blue and white. By chance, my cruise was the last cruise before she went into dry dock to repaint the hull. Once on board, my first place to go, if allowed, is always to the room itself to drop off my bags. I think one of the best changes that many cruise lines have made over the past decade or so is allowing guests to access their rooms earlier, with the understanding of, hey, don't judge us yet, just drop your stuff and go explore. So, in today's video, we're going to take a detailed look at essentially the entire ship. I'm going to show you every venue and common space on board, and we're going to take a deep dive, and trust me, I mean a deep dive into the onboard food program. So if you're considering taking a European Celebrity cruise, or a cruise on one of Celebrity's Solstice class ships, then hopefully you're going to find this video helpful. But if you've never been on a Celebrity cruise, you might want to check out my 9-minute Celebrity Cruises guide, which touches on all of the things that make Celebrity different from the rest of the industry. That's linked above and below. And just a reminder that there are chapter titles throughout the video to help you skip ahead to the parts that are important to you. I do realize this is a long one. Right now, we're on deck 3, which has the reception desk, where I spent a lot of time, the passport bar, and the shore excursions desk. This is the lowest deck with common space on board, unless you plan to make a stop at the medical center, which brings up a funny story, in retrospect. Long story short, I was due to be on this cruise back-to-back with another Costa cruise, with family. This video is long overdue for a variety of reasons, but primarily stemming from all of this. At the time, any cruises stopping in Greece still required COVID testing. Everyone in my family arranged to have the tests on the previous Costa ship the day before disembarkation. You may have guessed by now, but someone tested positive. So they took another loop around in Costa in isolation, and I continued on to the next cruise. So it wasn't necessarily the experience that I was expecting, which may be part of the reason why I've taken so long to make this video. I needed a good long while to ensure my thoughts and scores were clear and fair. So, detaching our folios and sorting out onboard credits and refunds and all of that jazz was my primary reason for getting to know literally all of the front desk staff by name. If you know just about anything about Celebrity, you know that they project a modern and cosmopolitan image, which may have you looking at this area of the ship and thinking, wait, why is it so dated? So there are 5 Solstice class ships which launched in 2008. This ship, the Reflection, was the last of them, launched in 2012. The downside of that is that, to my knowledge, this is the only one of the bunch that still hasn't had a full top-to-bottom refurbishment inside. So this is still from Celebrity's more classic and reserved era, I suppose we can say. So let's head up topside for a bit more of a refreshing start to the tour. The heart of the ship, truly, is this massive elevator atrium shaft, which runs from Deck 3 up to Deck 15, with the Solstice-class hallmark of a live tree suspended in the middle. At the time that this class of ship was launched, green things on board were not really the norm, as they have become in many newer ships these days. And so the lawns on these ships were heralded as perhaps a turning point for cruise ship design. Whether 15 years later we've changed the industry with this or not, I don't really think so. But I will say that I have always enjoyed the green outdoor spaces. They give a freshness which simply can't be duplicated without them. There are also cabanas of sorts for rent surrounding the primary lawn, though in all of my Solstice-class cruises, I honestly don't think I've ever seen more than 1 or 2 of them ever occupied. I should mention that while I don't have a lot of cruise videos on the channel yet, I have taken around 20 of them, about half of that being on Celebrity, and the rest spread across Norwegian, Royal Caribbean, Virgin Voyages, Holland America, and Princess. I say this just as a little context to where my opinions about cruising come from. Let's head back further to the venue that I undoubtedly spend more time at than any other, the Sunset Bar at the back of the ship. As we look around, let me tell you a wee bit about Celebrity. They are part of the Royal Caribbean Group. They own their namesake and Celebrity, as well as Silverseas Cruises and 50% of TUI Cruises. In total, the group has 57 vessels in their fleet, with 8 more on the way. For Celebrity, there are 13 ships, 3 expedition vessels, and 1 more ship on the way. The fact that Celebrity only has 1 other ship on order is kinda significant in an industry which multiplies like bunnies in springtime. This mainly comes down to a strategy shift for Celebrity many years ago, which saw them focus on a more premium product with the goal of forming a very loyal customer base, rather than expanding willy-nilly. This is one of the reasons that I've personally sailed on Celebrity more than any other. They're modern and innovative, but overall, they're generally more evolution than revolution, with a really strong focus on food offerings. In the middle of Deck 14, we have the primary pool on board, flanked by 4 hot tubs. This is truly one of my favorite parts of the ship. It's modern, but it's not fussy. And there are plenty of chairs for the taking, both in the sun and with plenty of shade. I also appreciate that there are always plenty of towels, and on these more chilly cruises, blankets available as well. I can't stand cruise lines that make you sign over your house just to get your hands on a single towel. You likely noticed already that much of my video is free from other guests. That is more by design than by circumstance. This cruise was not empty, I very much assure you that. In any of my cruise or hotel videos, I try my hardest to let other guests enjoy their holiday as much as possible, without having some guy walking around with a camera in their face. So I always film during off-peak hours as much as possible. And then of course we have the ubiquitous jogging track around the upper deck. Here's your friendly reminder to click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with friends and family. Those are truly the easiest ways, all free for you, to help the channel grow. If you'd like to support me further on Patreon, it's linked in the description below. Thanks very much in advance. Next up, we have the classier cousin of the main pool, the indoor solarium. This space is climate controlled and is the perfect place to relax around the pool, no matter the time of year or the conditions outside. This area also features the most comfortable loungers on board. Last up, we have the one place where I do quite a bit of, well, standing around. Every morning at sunrise, you'll find me up here, in front of the basketball court, with a cup of coffee, soaking in the sunrise as we pull into port. There is also one other small deck above this one with additional seating. If you head down to the description, you'll find my next 5 videos to come out, as well as other bits and pieces like the soundtrack titles featured in this video. On your way down, don't forget to subscribe. I release full-length videos every Thursday and Saturday. A lot of cruise lines these days go quite, shall we say, tacky in their pool area design. But Celebrity seems to have designed a space that actually blends in with its surrounds, no matter where it may be. Okay, time to head to my stateroom for these 10 nights, which is a very long time for me to sleep in one place if I'm honest. As we can kinda see looking down, each floor has a different functional lounge space off of the central atrium, all of which we'll explore. First up though was the Hideaway, which was on my deck, Deck 7. It's just a nice and quiet space, most of the time, to cuddle up with a book. There's also a coffee machine on each deck in this area, which generally are operational from 7 AM. Coffee and tea in the buffet area though is 24/7, as it should be. For this sailing, I was in stateroom 7177, a standard balcony stateroom near midship. As we take a look around, let me give you a big piece of advice if you're a light sleeper. You must avoid lower decks in the rear of the ship. All of the Solstice class ships have a distinct engine vibration, which I'll show you a bit later as it can literally be seen as some of my food was vibrating at dinner time. In the rear third of the ship, make sure to avoid decks below number 9. If it was my choice, I would simply avoid the rear third of the ship altogether, and I always prefer midship. Having just come off of a Costa cruise, which had what was at the time probably my favorite standard stateroom ever, this stateroom is just a little bit like walking back in time. That said, the rooms do excel in storage. Closet space is decent, but we can get an idea of what the ship has been through by just looking at the mishmash of hangars. Some of them look like they're straight out of Kohl's. Small details like this are things that I don't expect on a premium cruise line with a very premium price tag. My biggest pet peeve about these rooms, though, are the beds. I'm 6 foot tall, 181 centimeters, and I cannot stand these beds. First of all, the linens are borderline worn and frumpy, but the bed itself is too small. It's one of those odd sizes somewhere between a king and a queen, and it can be separated to make 2 smaller beds. But the problem for me is the length of the bed with its silly rounded edge. If I could change one thing on the entire ship, it would be this. Just give me a standard length bed. The balcony is a nice standard size and features 2 reclining chairs as well as a small table. I remember many years ago when these bathrooms were seen as modern and everyone was raving about the glass doors on the shower, which are in fact much better than any kind of shower curtain. But this bathroom has seen better days if you take a closer look. Water stains, rust, a bit of mold, peeling paint. It's time for a major refurbishment. Let's change the tune completely and talk turkey, and chicken, and roast beef. Yes, it is time for my favorite part of the video, the 14-minute buffet montage. Wait. Don't fast forward yet. Just hear me out for a few seconds first. This cruise easily had some of the best and most consistent buffets that I've ever had on a cruise. Some of them were truly spectacular. In this industry, the food sometimes is what makes the difference between a $4,000 Celebrity cruise versus a $1,500 Costa cruise. So if you're on the fence about whether Celebrity is worth it, for you, it's worth taking a look at what's on offer. I'll walk you through the experience step by step, I assure you. First though, I need to point out that the fresh and sun-filled Ocean View Cafe has plenty of seats. In fact, it has almost exactly the same number of seats as my previous cruise on the massive Costa Smeralda. But that ship has more than double the capacity of the Reflection. The capacity of the Reflection, by the way, is right around 3,000 passengers, which is my favorite size of ship. Plenty big to always keep you entertained, but not so big to make you feel like you're on a big floating Sheraton. At the back of the deck, just below the Sunset Bar, is the outdoor seating area for the Ocean View Cafe. This is where you'll find me literally every single morning. Let's dig in and start with breakfast. For the most part, breakfast is a wide variety of foods that does not change from day to day. What you're seeing now is likely what you'll get daily. Depending on what type of cabin you're staying in, there may be other options for you as well. Aqua Class passengers can dine for breakfast at Blue. Suite guests can dine at Luminea. Loyalty guests with elite tiers or higher can have a light breakfast at Tuscan Grill. The Spa Cafe is open for light bites for everyone. And of course, everyone can dine for a sit-down breakfast at Opus Dining Room. We'll see all of these spaces coming up later. Every buffet, no matter the meal, has a gluten-free section, vegan section, and Jain vegetarian section. For lunch and dinner buffets, I'll show you quite a bit of the vegan options on offer. Okay, so I'm going to combine the lunch and dinner buffets together, mostly because it's very much the same caliber and concept of food. Each of these buffets can be broken down into 5 main elements. The first type of dishes that you're seeing now are what I call the hero dishes. These were the really special dishes or cuts of the day, and always fit with the day's theme. Let me mention, to save a lot of time in what is already a very long video, I'm not going to be showing any food labels or menus in this video. All of that is of course subject to change every day anyway, and you can get a better idea from Celebrity's website as to the current offerings. Today, I'm just trying to give you an idea of what to expect. Let's call the next category the staples. These are the basic kind of foods that you'll find at nearly every buffet. From pastas to pizzas, grilled meats and fish, to salads, cold cuts, vegetables, and the like. Perhaps nothing too exciting, but always a decent, dependable variety. The next sections are the specialty sections. First up was the vegan corner, which had a variety of different options every day. I'm obviously not vegan. I'm ill-equipped, I think, to pass judgment on vegan food. But my one observation is that it seemed to be lacking quite a few protein options in general. While there was a better variety than I was expecting, it was majority vegetables and rice dishes. The largest and most dependable of the specialty lines was always the good Indian sections with a mix of local and Western favorites. The only weak spots that I consistently found on board were the East and Southeast Asian sections. There were always Indian options, but these other Asian options rotated and were very, very, very westernized versions of their original selves. The next category of dishes were the supporting cast for the theme of the day, and generally the best stuff on offer. It's really hard to overstate how good this food was. You know how many hotels I go to. I've told you how many cruises I've been on. To find a ship with buffets that are consistently flavorful, with a huge variety, and it's all hot but not dry, it's nearly a miracle. Most days when we were in port, the food was centered around authentic recipes from that region or that country. And the food was good enough to want to be on board for lunch every day. The sheer variety was honestly hard to believe. Please just take note of that wrapped veal tenderloin in the middle for later. And then, what is a cruise without an excessive amount of dessert? I'll be honest, I think desserts used to be a weak spot for Celebrity, but they've improved dramatically over the years with their offerings. I'm still not really a dessert person, but I appreciate the variety. And the fact that everything on offer is not a syrup or liqueur-soaked mini cake, which all taste the same. Many cruise lines still do this to this day. For dessert, there was always at least one gluten-free option, as well as no sugar-added options. So the food is truly what sets Celebrity apart in my mind, and is a big part of why I think they are, sometimes, worth the price that they charge. But there's one other part of cruising that I like even more than the food on offer, and honestly, it is simply cruising itself. I love being on the water. I love pulling in and out of port. Sunrises, sunsets, I love it all. So here's my 4-minute indulgent montage of a few of my favorite bits from these 10 nights. Okay, back to the food. As I mentioned, there is a section of the main dining room cordoned off named Luminea, which has an elevated menu just for suite guests. But for the rest of us, we have Opus Dining Room. Food-wise, Opus was my only real disappointment for the cruise. That said, it is a beautiful and massive bi-level space. I had Celebrity Select Dining, which means that you can walk in anytime, but you aren't guaranteed to have the same table or waiter on a nightly basis. I've always chosen Celebrity Select Dining since the program began, so I feel like I can compare the service here pretty well to prior cruises. The waiters were okay, but the sommeliers and the bar staff in the dining room literally could not be less interested in what they were doing. I think it was all compounded by the fact that I already had a drink package. As for the food, it was across the board, simply very mediocre. Often underseasoned, often off temperature. You'll recognize my main course from the first time that I came to the dining room was precisely the same that was on offer at the buffet, but oddly, it was available on the buffet before it came to the dining room. Some years back, Celebrity simplified their dining room menus. Soups, starters, and salads were combined into one category with 6 or 7 rotating choices, as well as 4 classic choices, which were the same every night. Same concept for the mains, which feature 6 rotating pasta and main dishes combined with 3 classics. I will admit that part of my feeling that the food here was mediocre was simply because of how good the other food on board was, both at the buffet and my 2 favorite specialty restaurants. But I think dining room food, at least, has to be as good in quality and cookery as a buffet. If it's not, what's the point of being served a la carte at all? I also had breakfast in the dining room once, my first and guaranteed last time. Just not my thing. I don't want a formal sit-down experience just to get the same exact food that's on offer in the buffet. If my quote-unquote French omelet was in fact a French omelet and not just an American-style chive omelet, perhaps it would have been worth it. What is always worth it though is Cafe Al Baccio, which is the specialty coffee shop on board. On one side they have chargeable gelato and on the other a pastry and espresso bar. Pastries are free for all, but the drinks are all chargeable. They open daily at 5:30 or 6 in the morning depending on the day, and there was almost always a small or sometimes long line as they opened. Next up, as we explore the supporting cast of chargeable restaurants, is Sushi on 5. On a longer itinerary like this one, it was a nice break from lunch buffets, but it was very westernized. On a cruise line like Celebrity, I'd expect lobster ramen and a spicy tuna roll to be much more elevated and, I hate to use the word authentic, but authentic. Sushi on 5 is a chargeable a la carte restaurant, by the way. Next up is the Porch, which is likely the only venue on the ship that doesn't actually advertise its existence. It's a flat-fee chargeable dinner option and focuses on casual seafood. The waiter told me that generally all of the tables except for 2 are reserved for suite guests, which is why it's not advertised. It was overall a really nice experience, besides that weird American cheese bread. The highlights being the fish tacos and the lobster roll. Next up is the Mast Grill. Located just above the pool, the Mast Grill is open for lunch daily and is inclusive, it's not chargeable. They have burgers and dogs and all the fixings on offer. Also included, the Spa Cafe is meant to be a healthy and light breakfast and lunch offering located within the solarium. The Lawn Club Grill. I've never felt the need to dine at it, and it just feels like an odd concept to me. It's essentially a cook-it-yourself steakhouse. But if you want, they'll help you cook it. But it's not social like a Korean barbecue since the grills are not tableside. It just feels like a disjointed and unnecessary concept since Tuscan Grill is so good. Speaking of which, let's head down now to the main attractions. First up is the Aqua Class restaurant, Blue, which is frankly the main benefit in my opinion of having an Aqua Class room. An incremental cost that I've never really thought was worth the price. Blue serves a menu that is meant to be lighter and refreshing. Next up, Cuisine. When this debuted on one of their Millennium Class ships many years ago, it was innovative and fun and edgy. Now, I feel like its time has passed. Feeling more gimmicky than anything else. I've dined there on other cruises, the food is good, but it wasn't worth the visit for me this time. What was worth 2 visits for me though was my favorite, the Tuscan Grill. As a full steakhouse experience, I think the food here is the best at sea, and the service both here and at Murano was beyond exceptional. Personable, attentive, knowledgeable beyond the book. Likely the best service staff on board. As for the food, honestly, it's hard to go wrong. The crab cakes are fantastic. The slab of bacon, I mean, it's a slab of bacon. And here, take a look at my mozzarella ball. Can you see it vibrating a bit? You'll see it in the sauces and the meatballs coming up as well. That's the engine vibration that I was talking about. And then the beef cheek pappardelle was probably my favorite thing from the menu. But the steaks were also really well cooked. The second time I visited, I went a bit more classic, or stereotypical, I guess. The meatballs were delicious. The calamari was fine, but pretty basic. And the carbonara was not a real carbonara, more like an oversauced Alfredo with peas. The steak and crispy polenta fries did make up for it though. The equally good highlight food-wise came from Murano, the French specialty restaurant. Very old school in design and menu and service. Murano is an occasion, which I recommend for anyone on board. Tuscan Grill, Cuisine, and Murano are all fixed price chargeable menus. You pay a flat fee and can order anything you'd like. Note that booking ahead of your cruise online will give you a discount, as well as going to a specialty restaurant on the first night of a cruise. The meal started off with a rosewater panna cotta and a selection of breads to choose from. Really good breads. For starters, I tried the creamy Maine lobster bisque and the wild forest mushroom cappuccino. To say that you were encouraged to overorder here and at Tuscan Grill would be an understatement. For the main dish, I had the Dover sole, served beautifully tableside. For dessert, I had the Grand Marnier soufflé, which was accompanied with chocolates, because why not? And of course, since all of that was not enough, there was also the final cheese course, which you could pick from the cart. It was truly a feast at all of these restaurants. Okay, food, done. let's move on to some of the bars and lounges. My go-to spot on board anytime the weather outside was crappy was always the Sky Observation Lounge. It's always been one of my favorite places on board during the day when it's not actually functioning as a bar and lounge. Always quiet with great views. At night, they often also feature live music and a full bar. Let's talk about the service. This is a bit of a mixed bag, so I'm going to split it into a couple of categories, but keep it brief. As I mentioned, the specialty restaurant staff were the best on board. The stateroom attendants were diligent and friendly across the board. The officers and upper level staff, as well as the lower level staff, I'm talking about the cleaners and such, were all much more engaging than usual, and were constantly exchanging smiles and pleasantries all around. The only letdown when it came to service were, I suppose you'd call it, the core staff. From bar staff to the main dining room to reception. It kind of felt like you were going to work and you were saying hello to your colleagues who you had to be nice to on a daily basis, but in reality, you didn't really care for them. Just a very strange vibe. Next up, likely the most popular evening bar on board, the Martini Bar, with over 100 varieties of vodka and gin on offer, most of which are included with the premium drink package. The bar service itself is frozen to keep your drink extra cold, and the Crush Bar just next door has a beautiful display of bottles. The next couple of bars and spaces in general are, honestly, some of my least favorite venues on board. This part of the ship always felt unnecessary and just out of place to me. Integrated into the shopping area is the World Class Bar, which is generally used for one very specific reason, when the Martini Bar doesn't have any open seats. Then we have Cellar Masters. At night, it's a dimly lit wine bar with an impressive wine list, but during the day, it's just another comfortable lounge to sit and chat away. Up top, we have the Mast Bar, which there's also a mobile version of, which will constantly be roaming the decks. Finally, we have the Ensemble Lounge, where you'll find nightly live music and a very dark, jazzy vibe. As for the other venues that aren't primarily drinking holes, first up we have the massive casino. And no, smoking is not allowed in the casino, or on any of the balconies. And the casino itself does of course have its own bar. And just in case you win big, they have the Future Cruise office and the art auction just close by, to make sure they recapture at least some of your winnings. Then we have the spa and very well equipped fitness center. And now we're moving on to those other spaces off of the atrium. On the highest level, we have the game room. Then we have what was once an innovative Celebrity Eye Lounge, for those of you that like to buy your computers while you're on the ocean. And just below that is the bi-level library. Just another nice place to curl up and read a book. As for the lounging areas, the final space is the near wraparound outdoor deck, which you'll find behind the lifeboats, with great views and often not that many guests. And last up, we have the non-liquid nighttime entertainment. There are two primary venues for performances on the ship. The first is called Celebrity Central and hosts everything from movies at sea to game shows to smaller comedy sets. The granddaddy of the venues, though, is the Celebrity Theater, which can seat up to 1,115 people. In general, they feature cover bands, comedy shows, and in-house shows, and this cruise was no exception. But I will say that the in-house show was a major disappointment. Many years ago, Celebrity debuted this new style of their own in-house shows, which were meant to be Broadway style-esque in nature, and in the past, they were really, really good. On this sailing, it was the complete opposite. The show, titled Elysium, was just a train wreck from the beginning. It almost felt as if the cast were all the understudies of the understudies. And the majority of the problems were with vocals that were difficult to listen to. It was cringeworthy how off-pitch they were. Always. I genuinely don't know if this was a cost-cutting measure, COVID-related, or perhaps they were just actually understudies. The audience in attendance can tell you just how good it was. I'll note that the ship was packed during my trip. What never disappoints, though, on Celebrity are the house bands, who would often set up base camp at the bottom of the atrium. By chance, during my cruise, the Reflection had its 10th birthday. I never really considered this much previously. I just thought it was the way that it was. But after cruises on Costa, and more recently on Virgin, I think there's something to be said about officer interaction. On Costa, I'm not even sure that we had a captain. They never said a word. On Virgin, we got a 15-second monotone welcome on embarkation day. Nothing else. On Celebrity, the captain gave daily updates on our progress and course, and like all other Celebrity captains that I've ever had, they just have excellent customer-facing personalities. So this was a long one for sure, but if I'm going to tell you that the best thing about a cruise was most of the food and especially the variety of it, well, then I think I better show you exactly what I mean so you can make a proper decision about whether Celebrity's prices are worth it. Because let's not kid ourselves, Celebrity charges a massive premium compared to other mainstream lines. On their older ships, where the rooms aren't state-of-the-art and some of the spaces on board are feeling a bit older, I don't think that those are major problems. But in my mind, it simply hinges a lot more of the decision-making on other things like the food offerings. Whether or not it's worth it to you, well, that's a decision for you to make. I can just assist. All of that said, quite a lot. I really do hope that you found this full tour and review of the Celebrity Reflection useful. If you did, or if you want to see my other hotel and airline content twice a week, be sure to subscribe and click that thumbs up button. I'll see you next time on board Aegean Airlines from London Heathrow to Athens. Oh, and thanks for watching until the end.